Hi, it's Tash from Foxes and Brown Bears Tarot, and today I've decided to look at tarot in times of crisis. Now, the motivation for this is because you've probably noticed I haven't been doing that many videos, and partly that's because I've been going through some fairly challenging times, bit of emotional overwhelm, and I guess in times of crisis like this, not only are you emotionally overwhelmed, but sometimes you find that you can't really connect with decks. You find that you're getting unclear messages, your kind of readings aren't really working, and part of that is because your head's just not quite in the right place, and you can often be quite unmotivated to work with not only the tarot but just doing general things like making videos. And so the reason I thought I'd go into this is because I've had to find my own way of dealing with this situation, and I've been finding that I can't use my cards in the way that I use them generally, and because I kind of need motivation and I need guidance from the cards, but at the same time, like, it can't be too much in my face because I can't deal with that. But at the same time, you don't want a hug deck because you actually need direction. You don't just want something telling you everything's going to be okay. You want some kind of direction. You want to know what you can do to make things better. And also because you kind of dealing with very concrete situations. I don't know about you, but I find that some of the airy fairy decks, so anything to angel-y or fairy, or anything to do with like higher purpose, or I don't know, anything I guess which is up in the air is or too spiritual, just isn't cutting it. To me, that's kind of, it comes across as quite patronizing. It's like, well, look beyond your material stuff. Look what else is happening way above. And it's like, well, actually, that's not what I need at this moment. I need something fairly concrete and grounded, and something that gives me very clear direction in the real world. And so it's quite a challenge to think about how you can use your cards and what cards you can choose to help direct you in times like this. And so what I decided to do is that as I would look at the decks that I've been using for daily pulls that have worked in this particular situation, I'll also be looking at a deck that I use for meditation in terms of like sort of grounding and maybe getting a bit of insight, and also look at decks that I use for actual tarot spreads, and then I'm going to look at two spreads. So one of them is a daily 2-card spread, and then the final one is a 5-card spread that you kind of use as needed. So I'm kind of hoping this will help you guys out, because it's something that I've been working on in terms of trying to help myself work through an emotionally challenging time. So let's begin with daily pulls. Okay, so for me, one of the go-to decks that is probably no surprise to anyone who has watched any of my channel is the medicine cards. So these are the medicine cards by Jamie Sams and David Carson, illustrated by Angela Wernicke. And these are those cards with the very garish backs, and they're very, very thin laminated cards. But these are probably my all-time favorite cards ever. They are not the most beautiful, but I have learned to love these images. Like, I've been thinking of trimming it. I can't even bring myself to do it because I've connected so deeply with the way they actually are at the moment, and they're just so beautiful. But it's not even just the cards that are really working with this one. To me, it's all about the book. And what I do is I pull one of these cards a day, and then I use that to give me a sense of what energy I need to embody, or it will give me some kind of message. And look at that, opened it to Fox. And so what I love about this is how it gives you a little verse. Fox, where are you under the ferns, becoming the forest I can learn? Are you watching, invisible to me, trying to teach me to become a tree? And what's fabulous about this is it actually gives you information about how the fox actually engages with his environment. And so the ability to vanish amidst the lush undergrowth, to meld into one's surroundings, to be unnoticed, to adapt in winter. So it is about, fox medicine involves adaptability, cunning, observation, integration, swiftness of thought and action. And so basically allows it to be the protector of the family unit. And if it's chosen to share its medicine with you, it's a sign that you are to become like the wind, which is unseen, yet is able to weave into and through any location or situation. You'd be wise to observe the acts of others rather than their words at this time. Use your cunning nature in a positive way. Keep silent about who and what and why you are observing. And it goes on, you know. One test exercise may be useful to you is deciding to be invisible. So, and you may also gain confidence in your ability to know instantly what will happen next. And you can use silly tactics as a brilliant camouflage move and all that. So what I find about this is, and it does have contrary meanings, which are reverse meanings, but I don't even use those. I just use the upright meaning because I only use upright cards for this one. But what I find is this will help me. So if I'm going through a really tough emotional time, I'll be like, okay, so I need to really focus on being adaptable, and I just need to kind of sit back and observe, you know, and make, you know, kind of be the unseen, focus on just, you know, protecting others, or having to, for example, you know, be silly. So you kind of take what you need from that, and that's the energy you need to embody for that day. And I find it really useful. Like, this deck to me is the most comforting deck I've ever had in my entire life, and it's my all-time favorite. All right, another one that is actually very similar, and this is also by Jamie Sams, although illustrated by Linda Childers, is the Sacred Path cards. And this is really cool. This is actually what the medicine cards type of box came in, but I no longer have the box because I've had the deck for so long, and I just keep it in a bag now, and I can't get the book out, which is kind of annoying because the book's kind of what it's all about. And yes, here it is. Okay, so these cards are not animal based, okay, although they have some animals in them. So these are the backs, also quite garish. Once again, still that very thin lamination, but they are really beautiful. These look like this, and so you'll actually have keywords on these ones. So seeking and finding, viewpoints and options, fertility, sharing and quickening, and they're all Indigenous American themes. So medicine involves healing, and burden basket, self-reliance, storyteller's expansion, prayer and inner peace, innocence and inner child, original source. So, I mean, once again, I actually find them quite beautiful, but they're not like you don't necessarily buy these for the art. What I love about this particular deck is really the book. Once again, the book's a real chunk, and it does give you a lot of information anyway. But for example, if you open it up to a particular card, you get so much on this. So once again, if you go to Council Fire, elders gathered, the fire of wisdom's light, words, decisions, conclusions, all through the night. I love those. I just find them really comforting. Sometimes I'll keep reading those over and over. And what's amazing about this one is it's Council Fire. It gives you the keyword decisions, and then it actually gives you the teaching. And the teaching will generally talk about how council fires are used, So it actually looks at the history, the culture. It gives you quite a lot of information on that. And then we'll have little things, you know, like any personal burden is left outside the circle. Every counsel is ended with a prayer of gratitude. And yes, and you must have the courage to accept the decisions of that counsel with grace. And, you know, and then there's realizing a sense of unity. And so it gives you so much information on the actual card and the history and culture behind it. But then it comes to the application. If you've been waffling over what to do next, the Council Fire card is insisting that you make a decision. There can be no forward movement if you fail to decide which trail will lead out of the swamp and into the forests. It takes courage to make changes in your life, and all changes must begin with a decision. Do it and don't look back. Life awaits you in all of its beauty. If the decision of another has left you in a precarious position, make new decisions of your own. There is no need to make your decisions based upon another's. Consider all possibilities and how your decision affects others, then be courageous enough to act. Find your truth and stick to it. And so I just, once again, I just find these so useful in terms of a daily pull. And they are, I guess, messages that you can truly just sit with. And you can keep thinking back to throughout the day, and it's very realistic, very grounded advice, and it's a kind of, I don't know, it's just that motivation. It's not in your face, it's not confrontational, but it's also not sugarcoating the truth. It's very grounded. It's very I guess, located in the material world in a lot of ways. It's what can you do? How can you behave? What can you think? And I think that's what's great about this particular deck in times of crisis. Another one that I absolutely love is the Sacred Traveler Oracle cards. This is by Denise Lynn, and I use these as daily pulls every day, particularly in times of crisis. And that's because the messages are just so beautiful. Like, support is all around you. You know, you are exactly where you need to be. You can overcome anything. Lie back, rest and relax. Take a risk, venture forward. Your light is shining brightly. You are a beacon for others. A fresh new way of living energy emerges, opening to your spiritual source. Shout to the heavens of happiness. It's time for healing, connecting, mending, releasing. Get ready for new horizons. And this is kind of the closest I get to a hug deck in times of crisis. And I find that these are very comforting. Once again, some of them are very comforting, but at the same time, the messages in the book are really helpful. So this one, Navigating by the Stars, Follow Your Bliss. It's a card meaning trust your gut. Believe, be patient and follow your bliss, be confident, right? And then the Sacred Traveler wants you to know sometimes you can't see the road ahead, but when you become still, you can feel the right way to go. It's like navigating by the stars. You might not be able to see every detail of the path of your life, but when you trust the light of the stars, your silent spirit guardians, and the joy of your guiding North Star to navigate in the darkness, in the morning light, you will find yourself the right place at the right time. So it's comforting, yet sort of practical in a way. This book's beautiful. It's been the most comforting deck I've had, along with, this. I use this all the time. This is so good. Another one that I use occasionally as well for daily pulls, times of crisis, the Angels and Ancestors Oracle cards by Kyle Gray and illustrated by Lily Moses. And these are once again very grounded, beautiful backs. And they're just gorgeous because they do have nice keywords. So, and they've got objects, and they've got directions and seasons and particular archetypes of people and guardians and angels, and so it's a mix of things in this particular deck. And I do love the artwork. It's absolutely beautiful. I have to say it, oh my gosh, and the cardstock's so pretty. But anyway, so I digress, because this is not about a walkthrough or anything. It's looking at how I use it. And once again, it's really all these cards always work very well for me. So here, Protection Guardian, drop your shields. Message, drop any shields of shame, resistance, and fear that is standing between you and your chances of enjoyment and fun. So once again, it tells you a very practical action to take, you know. And then it actually does give you information about the card, about the particular archetype, and then also has an extended message. You may have encountered shame or embarrassment in your past, but that is not your present. So, you know, you're stronger than you think. So things like that. So it's very comforting, but also very practical advice once again. And I use this a lot, and I have been using this a lot. And love the color too. And finally, another one that I use for daily pulls more as an oracle, even though it's a tarot, is the Dark Goddess Tarot by Lorenzi Prince. And the reason I use this as an oracle is, I don't know, I just think it works very well as an oracle. The cards gilded in gold, yeah. And so, yes, it does have the tarot meanings, but what I'll do is I'll pull one of these maybe once a week, or sometimes on a particular day if I feel like it. And what I do is I only ever do one, and that's because and I just hit my camera. I apologize immensely for that. And that's because the book's amazing. Okay, so when I go into it, so you can see, actually, let me just pull some other one. I don't know, doesn't really matter really. They're all just beautiful, to be honest. So here, okay, so you got the Seven of Cups, just Seven of Water, and this is Maeve, so the Irish goddess of intoxication. Drink from the cup, enter the gate to elsewhere. And what it does is it gives you information about the particular goddess, and then it gives you information about what it means when she appears. So your imagination is the gateway to success in the situation. Think from a place where there are no boxes. Use this power you have to see things inside your mind that are not seen with eyes open. All right. Give your fantasies free rein. Do not get bogged down in practical matters. Okay. Do not be put off or distracted by emotions. Persevere. So it's very, very practical advice. And that's why I don't just use it as a tarot, because I find the book is amazing in terms of daily pulls. It works in a very similar way to the other oracle cards that I have shown you. And so I use this quite a lot as well. All right, so they're my daily pull decks. Another deck that I use on quite a regular basis for meditation is my Native Spirit Oracle cards by Denise Lynn. And the way I use these is, I don't use the book a lot, but I do use the cards as inspiration. So what I'll do is I'll pick a particular card, and then I'll use that image to meditate on. So what I'll do is some kind of shamanic kind of journey where I picture myself walking through this particular landscape, see what insights come to me, see what animals or objects come in my way. And even in times of crisis, if I'm not getting insight from the card, from the particular landscape, sometimes even just getting into a different landscape and just meditating and picturing yourself in another place can be good distraction. Now, in times of crisis, distraction's not always the best way to go, because you really need to accept what's happening so that you can move through it. But sometimes it's really nice to just, I guess, get away from the intensity of the feeling. And also what I find is sometimes when you go into these landscapes, you'll still have the experience of the feelings and the thoughts that you're experiencing. It just allows you to step back and view it in a different way. So instead of the emotion coming from within, you are engaging with the emotion in a symbolic way within that particular landscape. Now, I don't know if that makes sense, but I find this just a really good way to do it. And because I find that I just happen to pull a specific card, I feel like I always pull the one that's going to give me a landscape that really works for me at that time. And so I don't know, that's the way I use this particular deck. I don't tend to use it for draws or daily pulls or spreads or anything like that. And of course, sometimes you can actually also, once I do the journey, I can look back and you can also read the card meaning, but I actually find I just use the cards on their own for this one. So that's one that I use in a very specific way and only in that way. All right, then in terms of tarot, I've got 5 tarot decks that I have been finding fairly useful in times of crisis. And the one is no surprise, it's my all-time favorite tarot deck, and it's the Everyday Enchantment by Palin. And I have trimmed this. And what I love about this is it's just so grounded in reality. So it works extremely, extremely well in terms of that. So, and one way I use this as well is I might look at it in terms of gratitude. I do gratitude each night. And so what I'll do is I'll pull a card. And so I'll get this card, for example, the Queen of Coins, and I look at the card and pull out anything from it that I can be grateful for that day. So I might go, well, actually, I've eaten some really nice food today, or gosh, I had some great jam, or, you know, I'm able to actually still purchase food. I have the money to buy food. You know, I have great pets, or I have a family around me, or, you know, I've planted a great plant outside and it's growing, or, you know, I found something on sale. So you can pull out anything from the card and look at it as a gratitude prompt, where you're trying to find something in that card that relates to your everyday life that you can be grateful for. And so I use that a lot for this particular one. So this one, for example, I might look at, well, you know, I'm grateful for my freedom, you know, for my ability to experience joy and excitement, or I'm grateful for having seen a really cute bird outside, whatever, you know, and grateful for having a job, or grateful for having good memories of going to restaurants, because who knows where that's going to happen again. But anyway, so I use that a lot for gratitude, but I will also use it for spreads in times of crisis, because it's very grounded, it's very rooted in the everyday world, and so it gives you very practical advice. So another one that I have, it's probably the closest to a hug deck that I've been using, is the White Sage Tarot. So this little one by Teresa Hutch comes in a tin, and this is interesting because this is probably my only pip deck, and for some reason it just gives me very clear messages. And I think what's great about this is the links to chakras, so it gets me to think about things I can focus on. So even if it just, like this one's yellow, so it relates to the solar plexus, and so it's take action towards your own truth. And then of course you can link that to wands, but it gives me a sense of a part of my body that I might need to pay attention to. And then the major arcana are gorgeous animals, but they also, and the court cards are animals as well, but I don't know, I just find this one gives me very clear readings, and maybe because it's sort of in between. It's still grounded. It's a very grounded deck. It's not airy-fairy, and it's also not overly huggy because of the pip nature of it. I find I can read this fairly clearly, even if I'm a little bit emotionally overwhelmed. So yes, that's one of them that I have been able to use quite a lot. It's only got a little white book, so it hasn't got very much, but it gives you some nice little messages, which can be very helpful too. Another one that's sort of huggy in some way, I guess, is the Spirit Song Tarot. And the reason that I find this one useful is because it has really cool keywords on it. And when you're overwhelmed, keywords are very helpful, but also they talk about values in a lot of ways. And particularly in times of crisis, one of the ways to work through them is to think about what you actually truly value in life, think about your strengths. And it's in psychology, it's viewed as a strength-based approach. It's the idea that you're going to focus on your particular strengths. You're going to look at what you truly value, and then you're going to take actions in the direction of your values. Okay, so that kind of comes from the ACT model of therapy, which was originally developed by Stephen Hayes. And I find that this deck's really beautiful for that. And it's not overly confronting, but at the same time it's still grounded because it's nature-based. And so it keeps you in the current, I guess it keeps you grounded on earth still. So here you might pull this one and it's like, oh, truth. Yes, I very much value truth. And so I'm going to pursue truth in this particular situation. Or focus. Okay, I'm going to think about what I focus on. So even if I don't link it to the actual arcana, I don't link it to the tarot meanings, sometimes I'll just pick one of those keywords and use that as a value-based approach to deal with a particular crisis. So I think that's a really cool way to use this deck, and it's truly beautiful. Like, I love Paulina Cassidy's artwork. It's lovely. It really is. You know, and like this one, be persistent, or, you know, look for new possibilities, look for new ways of viewing things. And so that would be another way to look at it. Okay, then I've got another deck that I find is really useful for a similar reason, is the Majestic Earth Tarot by J.D. Hildegard Hinkle. And the reason for that is, once again, it has keywords. So, as you can see, it's transition, journey, persevere, passage. And also I find you can get lost in the landscape. It is nature-based, keeps you grounded, keeps you mindful about the present moment. But once again, you can, this isn't so much value-based, but it can give you really good keywords to focus on, particularly with a spread that I'm going to show you later on, next. Can be very, very useful in that way. So you can kind of go, yeah, you're looking at this is time of renewal. Okay, remind yourself of that. You know, maybe you need to change things. You need to bring in new things. And I find the landscapes are very, I guess, conducive to good intuition, where you can kind of pull yourself into it, and you can get some really good messages, and I guess you're exploring what you're thinking and feeling in a very grounded manner. So yes, I just really like this one, daily life. So you might be looking at it as, okay, what can I do on a daily basis? It's like to bring balance, or I mean, that's how I use this one a lot. And also I just find the images really beautiful and comforting. And it reminds me that there's a greater world out there too. That's, you know, everything, that there's stuff beyond my thoughts and feelings at this moment beyond my current circumstances or situation. And yes, so that is a very beautiful one to use. So yes, that's how I use that one. All right, and then the final deck I'm going to show you for this one is the Arthurian Tarot by Caitlin and John Matthews, illustrated by Miranda Gray. And this is really cool because it is linked to the Arthurian legends. But in times of crisis, I don't get lost in the legend. I don't necessarily think about how that links to Arthur. What I do for this particular deck is look at the book. I love the book for this one. And I mentioned this in another video, but I mean, look, the images are really beautiful. And sometimes it can help to get lost in gorgeous imagery when you're overwhelmed. And it can help to get lost in legend and story and myth, and it's kind of cool to get into that. But really what I use this for, as I said, is the book, where I'll go into it. And so if I pull a Hierophant, I go down to the questions section here, and it says, what inspires you about this? What is seeking to be revealed now? What is the next step in your journey? And I use that as guidance. So some other ones, Sword 9. What is the worst? So what's the worst that can happen? What's worst case scenario? Can you deal with worst case scenario? What will you do if worst case scenario happens? And then you can start thinking about, well, how likely is worst case scenario? Okay. Things like, what is binding you for Sword 8? Okay. And this could be thoughts or feelings or situations or people or particular commitments, responsibilities. And it gets you to really think about what's happening in your life, like what's causing division, what needs to rest, what is being lost. And those questions to me are amazing. And I find that very, very useful in trying to work out where I am and how I can understand where I am and where I can move to. So that's another deck that I found particularly useful. Now, finally, I'm going to get into some spreads. So one of the two card spreads that I use, and you can use this on a daily basis, and sometimes I do, is pretty much your first deck is going to be, and I'm going to just use the Spirit Song Tarot to illustrate this one. It's where your first card is how to manage the challenges of the day. Okay, so in this case, how do I manage the challenges that are coming today? Well, I need to look at things clearly, and I need to focus on truth. Okay, so maybe I need to be very clear about what is true and what is just based on speculation. So maybe don't focus on speculation, focus on the facts. And so that's kind of cool. And actually that works very well. At the moment we've had New South Wales in Australia is in lockdown, and you're getting a lot of media speculation about how we could be in lockdown for months, and all sorts of things that could happen. And the reality is we don't know that. What we know now in terms of truth is we are currently in lockdown. This is currently our situation. This is currently what we can do. And fearing the future is not helpful. There's no point speculating. It's like focus on the now. Okay, so that's what I'd get out of this card. And note that I don't necessarily look at the justice element of it. And so I don't know. So maybe I'm using it more as an oracle. Who knows? But that's what I've been using this deck for. And maybe it's just that I can't actually read tarot in a traditional manner when I'm overwhelmed. And maybe that's what it comes down to. So that first card is how to manage challenges of the day. The second card is what to focus on. And so here ideas and discipline. Okay, so in this case, I might be looking at, okay, well, what am I going to focus on? I'm going to focus on being disciplined about what I get done. Okay, I have things I have to do, and so I'm going to discipline myself and get things done that are in my control. And so that's it. I'm going to manage a day by only focusing on truth, and I'm going to focus on discipline as an action. Okay, so as well. So yeah, it's just one of those things I find quite useful. And this particular Spirit Song Tarot is very good for that. All right, finally, my 5-card spread that I've been using is once again very psychology based. I don't do prediction. I just don't. I find that for me, the best use of tarot is about trying to work out my life, work out how I can become a better person and how I can live a more meaningful life. And so this particular deck, I'm going to just use the Everyday Enchantment for this one, maybe. Hopefully it all fits in because it's quite a large deck. But your first card really is look at what is in your control, because so many things we worry about are actually not in our control. Okay, so I kind of go, okay, so my first card is the 3 of Cups. Okay, what is in my control? Well, maintaining my friendships and relationships are within my control to some extent. I can work on maintaining my friendships. For example, even though I'm in lockdown at the moment, I can still maintain those friendships. That's completely and utterly in my control. Okay, so I'll put that there. Then the next card is what is not in my control. And in this case, I might get the Ace of Coins, and I might go, well, actually, my work's not in my control. I have to do it, okay? And I have to just get it done, okay? So there's going to be jobs that I need to get done, no matter how I'm feeling. And I can't control that. I can control how I respond to it, but I can't control the actual situation. And so I need to accept that. Okay. Then my other cards are going to be focusing on behaviors, because what we do in times of crisis is we resort to behaviors that are comforts or responses to situations, or we're going to react in a way because we want to make things better, right? We need to manage it. So we don't just, and sometimes behavior is just doing nothing. It can be doing nothing. If you just spend your whole day lying in bed, that's still a behavior. And whether that's working for you or it's not working for you. And I think that's the thing. It's not about whether a behavior is good or bad. It's about whether the behavior is working to make your life better, not just in the short term, but in the long term. Okay, so the first card is behaviors that are working. And so here's strength. So that's it. So focusing on my strengths is a behavior that's working. You know, working, like doing things that I'm good at is working for me, because especially when you feel out of control and emotionally overwhelmed, focusing on things that you're actually good at and you can get a sense of achievement from can be very valuable. So for example, I've been cooking nice meals for myself. That's a strength. Okay. And then the second card, of course, is what is not working. What behaviors are not working for you? And this one is like the 10 of Blades, which is 10 of Swords. And so here you can see, I would go with fear. It's not working for me here, okay? Catastrophizing, thinking that it's the end and that there's no way out of situations, okay? Yes, you may be scared, but having that fear and giving up and the hopelessness is not working. It doesn't work in the short term, and it certainly doesn't work in the long term. And then finally, I'll put in a 5th card, which is the advice for action, okay? What's the advice for something that I can do to to manage the situation and get some meaning from it, and work towards my future. And so here I might get the Ace of Blades. Well, I mean, you can kind of, this is kind of a tricky one, but maybe, you know, think about your thoughts. Maybe think about coming up with some new thoughts. Or you can just look at the card, and in this case, I might be looking at, well, maybe focus on actually looking after my health. I mean, that could be something I could get out of this card. So that would be your advice card. Okay, focus on your health in this case. And note that once again, sometimes I'll get the message from the imagery, sometimes I'll get it from the actual tarot card. I use imagery a lot. So here it's like, focus on your health. So what can I do? I can exercise, I can eat well, and that will help me manage this particular situation. So that's kind of it. It's a very long video, so thank you to anyone who's actually stayed this long, and hopefully you have been rewarded with a kind of cool little tarot spread. So just as a reminder, it's what is in your control, what is not in your control, behaviors that are working, behaviors that are not working, and advice for action. Thank you for watching. I hope this has been helpful, because this has been an approach that has been very helpful for me, and I really felt that I wanted to share this because I'm sure there are other people going through crisis at the moment. Catch you next time. Thank you.